In the grand halls of the Galactic Council, thousands of alien eyes stared at the boy who stood alone. His name was Eric, and he was the last of his kind. A human. The council chamber shimmered with golden light, yet the laughter that echoed. Inside was sharp and cruel. Every whisper carried the same mockery, the stain of his bloodline. Human, one alien sneered, its voice deep and mocking. A broken species. A dying echo of a forgotten world. Others joined in the laughter, their words cutting like knives. His ancestors were weak, another hissed. They fell, they failed, and they left nothing but shame. Eric clenched his fists, his heart pounding with anger he dared not show. He stood still, silent. Wow. The crowd of aliens roared with amusement at his expense. From his earliest years, he had been told that the human race was cursed. Once, long ago, humans had risen high, traveling the stars, making allies, fighting wars. But then they had fallen, crushed by stronger races, erased from history, except for one fragile bloodline, his own. Eric was the last, and to the galaxy, he was nothing more than a reminder of weakness, the stain of a lost people. But deep in his chest, the boy carried something more than shame. A fire burned inside him, faint but steady, a fire that came from the very blood the galaxy mocked. His father, before dying, had whispered to him, "Never forget who you are, Eric. Our bloodline carries more than failure. It carries secrets, it carries strength." Those words lived inside him, louder than the laughter of the aliens. Still standing in that hall, Eric felt the heavy weight of humiliation. The council members laughed as if his existence was nothing but a joke. Even the guards at the door looked at him with contempt. He wanted to scream, to fight, but he held back, because to fight now would only prove them right. They believed humans were beasts, not thinkers, not warriors anymore, only relics of a lost world. The council leader, a tall alien with shining blue skin, raised its hand. "Silence," it commanded, though amusement still glittered in its eyes. It looked down at Eric as if studying a small insect. "You are here because your name still carries weight, though your blood carries nothing but disgrace." The word struck Eric harder than a blade, but he kept his face calm. "Go, child of humans, live among us, and let the galaxy watch your failure. Perhaps your death will finally close the chapter of your kind." The council dismissed him, and the heavy doors opened. Eric walked out, his head held higher than they expected, though his heart was heavy with anger and pain. Behind him, the laughter rose again, a cruel wave of scorn. But as he stepped into the cold streets of the alien city, he whispered to himself, "They will see. One day they will see." The city around him was vast, towers of shining crystal rising high into the clouds. Alien ships roared above, and strange beings filled the walkways. Eric felt small in the endless crowd, a single human among thousands of species. Everywhere he went, eyes followed him, not with curiosity but with disdain. He was marked by his face, his form, his bloodline. Yet inside, the fire burned brighter. He thought of his father's words again, the secret strength hidden in their blood. Was it real? Or only a dying man's comfort to his son? Eric did not know, but he would find out, somewhere, hidden in the ruins of the past. The truth of the human race waited, and he would uncover it. No matter what the galaxy thought of him. That night, alone in a small room on the edge of the city, Eric sat by the dim light of an old lamp. He took out a small metal piece, worn and ancient, passed down from his ancestors. It was shaped like a fragment of a starship, carved with symbols no alien could read. His father had told him, "Keep it safe, for one day it will speak to you, and on that day your bloodline will rise again." Eric stared at the fragment, his mind filled with questions. Why did aliens fear humans once? Why did they now laugh? And what truth was locked inside this fragment of the past? As he closed his hand around it, he felt a strange warmth pulse through the metal. His heart raced, his breath caught. But then the glow faded as quickly as it had come. Eric sat in silence, knowing this was no ordinary relic. It was a key, Beginning, a spark waiting to ignite, and though the galaxy saw him as nothing but the stain of his bloodline, Eric knew something none of them did. The legacy of humans was not finished. It was only sleeping, waiting for him to wake it, outside. The alien city laughed and moved on, but in that small room, a boy sat with fire in his heart and destiny in his hand, and the galaxy had no idea what was coming. Asterisk. The next morning, Eric woke with the fragment still clutched in his hand. The faint warmth from the night before lingered in his memory, as if the object itself had whispered a promise. He stared at it again, tracing the strange symbols with his finger. They were not alien letters, nor any script he had seen in books or council archives. These were human symbols, carved by his own ancestors, hidden from the galaxy. He remembered the old words of his father, "If you wish to know the truth of our bloodline, you must seek the places where others fear to go." Eric had always thought those words were only stories, something meant to comfort him when he felt small and mocked. But now, holding this fragment, he felt those words were real. The secret of his bloodline was not gone. It was waiting, buried in forgotten places. The alien city was alive as always, its streets filled with towering creatures and strange machines. But Eric moved quickly through the noise and lights, staying quiet, unnoticed. He had heard of an old library on the far edge of the city, a place where records from fallen worlds were stored. Aliens did not care much about human history, but scraps of data sometimes survived, left in dusty archives where no one bothered to look. If there were answers, he hoped they would be there. The library was enormous, carved into the side of a mountain. Its doors were tall and heavy, guarded not by soldiers but by silence. Inside, the air smelled of dust and old metal. Shelves stretched as far as his eyes could see, filled with glowing crystals and steel tablets. Eric felt small inside, but his determination grew stronger. Here, perhaps, he could find proof that his people were more than a stain. Hours passed as he searched through shelves. Most records were about great alien wars, treaties, empires that rose and fell, but very little spoke of humans, and what he did find was twisted with lies. Words like weak, unworthy, a failed species, repeated again and again. Eric's jaw tightened, but he kept searching, deeper and deeper into the oldest corners of the library. At last, hidden behind broken shelves, he found a dark section marked with warnings. Unverified data. The sign read in alien script. To most, this was a useless place, a graveyard of half-forgotten myths and dead languages. But to Eric, it was a beacon. He entered the section and began pulling crystals from the shelves, activating them one by one. The first showed fragments of human songs, voices singing in languages no alien understood. The next revealed images of Earth oceans, forests, cities shining with light. Eric's breath caught, his eyes wide with wonder. It was not weakness he saw, but beauty, strength, and a world filled with life. Tears stung his eyes, but he did not stop. Then he found something more, a crystal that glowed faintly, as if waiting for him. When he touched it, the symbols on his fragment pulsed with light. The crystal unlocked, projecting streams of data into the air. And for the first time, Eric saw the truth. It was a record of the old human fleets, massive starships that had once commanded the galaxy. The ships were not like those of other races. They were alive, linked by blood to their human pilots. Only those of the bloodline could command them. Only humans could awaken them. Eric's hands shook as he realized what this meant. His people had not been weak. They had been feared, powerful, unmatched. And the galaxy had buried this truth, twisting history to make humans appear broken and small. But why? Why would the galaxy erase such a legacy? The record revealed battles, victories, and then betrayal. Allies who turned against humans, enemies who united to destroy them. The fleets had been defeated not because humans were weak, but because they had been feared so much that the galaxy itself conspired to erase them. Eric fell to his knees, the weight of revelation pressing down on him. All his life he had carried shame, but now he saw the truth. the laughter of the council, the scorn of the aliens. It was all built on lies. His bloodline was not a curse, it was a key, and he, the last of his kind, carried that key. The library walls seemed to close in around him as he clutched the glowing crystal and the fragment. Voices echoed in his head, his father's words. The laughter of the council, the whispers of history itself. He now knew what they had hidden, what they had tried to bury. The legacy of his people was alive in him, but revelation was also danger. If the galaxy had once united to destroy humans, what would they do if they learned one still carried the key? Eric hid the crystal under his cloak and left the library before dawn. The streets were quiet, but he felt eyes watching him. Perhaps it was his imagination, or perhaps the secret he carried was already too loud to hide. As he reached his small room again, he whispered to himself, "They will regret their laughter. They will see the truth." The fragment pulsed once more in his hand, as if agreeing. And though the city still mocked his bloodline, Eric knew the tide of history was shifting. The forgotten records had been found, and with them, the first spark of a legacy that would change the galaxy forever. The alien city never slept. Its towers of light pierced the skies, and its markets sang with noise and color. But Eric felt none of the wonder. The secret he carried now weighed heavier than ever. Hidden beneath his cloak, the crystal from the forgotten records pulsed faintly when he touched it, reminding him that his bloodline was more than shame, more than weakness. Yet the world outside still laughed, still mocked, still believed him broken. That morning, a crowd gathered in the main square. Eric tried to pass unnoticed, but voices rose around him, sharp and cruel. "There, the last human," one alien shouted, its long arms pointing at him. "Coward blood," another jeered. "Good for nothing but running." The voices grew louder, and soon the square boiled with laughter. Eric's fists tightened, but he kept walking, until a tall, armored figure blocked his path. It was a soldier of the Arena Guild, marked by scars and steel. "You there," the soldier growled, its voice metallic through the helmet. "The council has spoken. You are summoned to the arena." Eric froze, his heart pounding. The arena, the place where countless challengers were thrown to fight for survival, a pit of blood and spectacle, where the weak perished and the strong rose in glory. To be called, there was no honor for him. It was a death sentence. The crowd cheered at the announcement, their voices filled with cruel joy. "Let the human die in the sand," someone shouted. "Let his bloodline end where it belongs." That night, Eric was taken to the great arena. It was carved deep into the rock, a vast circle of steel and sand where thousands gathered to watch. The torches blazed, drums thundered, and banners of alien clans waved in the air. At the center, the gates waited to open, releasing beasts or warriors chosen for the fight. Eric stood in a small cell below, the chains cold around his wrists. His breath was heavy, his mind racing. This was not a fair fight, not a test. This was the council's way of turning him into a spectacle, to let the galaxy laugh one last time at the weakness of humans. But as he stood in silence, his hand brushed against the fragment hidden beneath his tunic. A spark pulsed through him, faint but strong. His blood seemed to answer, his body filled with warmth he could not explain. Perhaps it was fear, or perhaps it was the legacy of his people stirring awake. The gates creaked open. Eric stepped into the arena, the roar of thousands shaking the air above him. The council and guildmasters watched, their eyes filled with hunger for blood. The announcer's voice boomed. "Tonight, the last of the human race faces his destiny." The crowd howled with laughter, calling his death before the battle even began. Across the sand, another gate opened, and a beast emerged. It was a towering creature, scales glittering, eyes burning with hunger. Its claws could tear through steel. Its jaws could crush bone in a single snap. Eric's legs trembled, but he stood his ground. The voices of his ancestors seemed to whisper inside him, not in words, but in fire. He remembered the forgotten records. Humans had once commanded fleets, fought wars, faced enemies far greater than this. If his blood truly carried that strength, he would find it now. The beast charged, its roar shaking the walls. Eric moved, faster than he thought possible. His instincts guiding him, he rolled across the sand, barely dodging the claws that slammed into the ground. The crowd gasped, expecting him to fall at the first strike. But Eric was still standing, his eyes burning with defiance. The battle raged, the beast striking again and again. Eric's body moved with a rhythm he did not know he possessed. Every dodge, every step, felt carved into his blood, as if generations of warriors guided him. At last the creature lunged, jaws wide. Eric seized a broken spear from the sand, left from some forgotten battle. With a cry that shook even the loudest laughter, he drove it into the beast's throat. The arena went silent. The creature collapsed, its body shaking the ground. Eric stood over it, chest heaving, blood and sand clinging to his skin. The last human had survived, where no one believed he could. The silence turned into a roar, but not all of it was laughter anymore. Some voices carried shock, others respect, though many still spat hatred. But Eric did not care. For the first time, he had shown them the bloodline they mocked was not broken. It was alive, powerful, burning through his veins above. The council leader leaned forward, its eyes sharp. This was not what they expected. The boy had not died in shame. He had risen in defiance. And in that moment, Eric realized the arena was not just punishment. It was a stage, a message to the galaxy. They had wanted to show his failure, but instead, they had revealed his strength. As he left the sand, the chains around his wrists now broken, Eric whispered to himself, "This is only the beginning." And in the shadows of the council chamber, enemies began to whisper too. The human bloodline was no longer a stain, it was a threat. Asterisk. The victory in the arena spread across the city like fire. Whispers turned into rumors, and rumors turned into fear. The last human, the boy they had mocked, had stood against the beast and survived. For many, it was only a strange accident, a twist of fate, but for others, it was something far more dangerous. In the high halls of power, far from the streets, the council gathered again. The leader with blue skin stared at the others, its eyes cold and sharp. "This cannot continue," it said, its voice heavy with authority. "The boy is not weak as we believed. His bloodline still carries fire, and that fire could burn us all." The chamber filled with murmurs, some voices agreeing, others doubtful. "But he is only one," a counselor hissed. "A single boy cannot stand against the galaxy." The leader leaned forward, its tone darker than before. "One boy can light a war, and we cannot let that war begin again." Outside the council's walls, Eric walked through the city in silence. The people looked at him differently now, their laughter mixed with unease. Some glared with hatred, others kept their distance. A few, very few, watched him with quiet respect. But Eric felt the change in the air. He had survived, but survival alone was not enough. The secret he carried in his cloak, the crystal from the forgotten records, pressed against his chest as if reminding him of its weight. That night, Eric returned to his small room. He lit the dim lamp and studied the crystal again. Symbols flowed across its glowing surface, maps of old star systems, battle records, commands written in the lost tongue of his ancestors. The words were heavy with history, and Eric could barely understand them. But one phrase repeated again and again, the blood key. The fleets of the past had been locked away, hidden so no one could misuse them, and only one of human blood could awaken them. Eric felt his heart race as he realized the truth. The council feared him not because of what he was now, but because of what he could become. A sound broke his thoughts. The door creaked, shadows moved, and a figure stepped inside. Eric jumped to his feet, his hand on the fragment hidden in his belt. From the darkness, a cloaked stranger appeared, tall and silent. "Calm yourself," the voice said, deep and careful. "I am not your enemy, human." Eric's eyes narrowed, but he did not lower his guard. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice steady. The stranger pulled back the hood, revealing an alien with silver eyes. Its face was marked with scars, its expression unreadable. "My name is Kalen," it said. "I watched you in the arena, and I know what you carry." Eric's heart skipped, his fingers tightening on the fragment. Kalen stepped closer, lowering his voice. "The council will not let you live. They already whisper of your death. You must leave this city, or you will not see another dawn." Eric's mind burned with questions, but one rose above the rest. "Why do you care?" he asked. Kalen's eyes flickered with something like sorrow. "Because I know the truth of your people," he said. "I fought in the old wars, when humans still walked the stars, and I know what the council hides." Eric's breath caught. "You were there?" he whispered. Kalen nodded slowly, his voice heavy. "I saw the fleets. I saw the fire in your kind, and I saw how the galaxy feared you. They united not because you were weak, but because you were too strong. If they had not destroyed your people, no race would have stood against you." Eric felt both anger and pride surge inside him. "So they erased us," he said, his voice shaking. Kalen's tone grew harsher. "They erased you, but they did not erase everything. Some of your fleets still remain, hidden in the shadows of forgotten worlds, waiting for the Bloodline to return. And now you are here." The crystal in Eric's cloak pulsed, as if agreeing. Kalen's eyes narrowed. "Do you understand? The council will kill you because they fear what you can awaken." Before Eric could answer, the sound of heavy boots echoed outside. Kalen's expression hardened. "They have already come," he said. "We must go." The door shattered open, and soldiers in armor stormed the room, their weapons glowing. Eric's heart pounded as Kalen drew a blade of strange metal, its edge glowing with blue fire. The soldiers lunged, but Kalen moved like lightning, cutting them down with swift, deadly strikes. Eric grabbed the fragment, its warmth flooding his body. Instinct guided his hands as he dodged and struck. Fighting beside the stranger, the last soldier fell. Silence filling the room once more. Kalen turned to Eric, his voice sharp but steady. "This was only the beginning. The shadow of the enemy has fallen on you, and they will not stop until you are gone." Eric stared at the broken door, his breath heavy. The council had shown their true face. They would never let him live. But as fear pressed against his chest, the fire inside him burned brighter. "They will not erase me," he whispered. "Not again." Kalen nodded, a faint smile crossing his scarred face. "Then come, Eric, child of humans. It is time you see the worlds your people left behind. It is time to awaken your legacy." Outside, the city slept, unaware of the storm rising in its shadows. But the enemy was awake, and so was the last human, and the galaxy would soon tremble between them. Asterisk. The night sky stretched endlessly as Eric followed Kalen beyond the city walls. They moved swiftly through the rocky plains, their steps silent under the glow of alien moons. Behind them, the city still burned with torches, searching for the fugitive human. But ahead lay the unknown, the path to a secret that had been buried for centuries. Kalen walked with purpose, his silver eyes scanning the horizon. Eric carried the crystal close to his chest, its faint pulse steady every time he touched it. The warmth reminded him of the truth. His bloodline carried something greater than shame. But he did not yet know the full shape of that truth, and it burned inside him like a question too large to ignore. "Where are we going?" Eric asked at last, his voice low. Kalen glanced at him but did not slow his pace. "To a place older than the council itself," he said. "A world where the bones of your people still sleep, where the ships of your ancestors wait." Eric's breath caught, his steps faltered. "You mean the fleets?" he whispered. Kalen nodded, his tone heavy. "They exist, hidden in shadows, waiting for blood to call them. No alien can wake them, only you." The thought made Eric's chest tighten, fear mixing with pride. Could he truly awaken what his ancestors left behind? He was only one boy, mocked and scorned all his life. But the fragment at his belt and the crystal in his hand seemed to say otherwise. They whispered of power, of destiny, of a legacy too heavy to ignore after days of travel across barren lands and frozen valleys. They reached the ruins of an ancient outpost. The ground was cracked, the towers broken, half buried in dust and vines, but something about the place felt alive, a faint hum under the earth. Eric felt it through his bones, as though the very soil recognized his presence. This was once a human colony, Kalen said, his voice quieter than before, destroyed in the wars, forgotten by all, yet its heart still beats, waiting for you. He led Eric to the largest ruin. A vast dome split open like a broken shell. Inside, the air was heavy, filled with the scent of rust and time. Yet the walls glowed faintly with old marking symbols Eric recognized from his fragment. His breath quickened, his hands trembled. These were the same words, the same shapes his father had shown him, the same fire carved into his bloodline. Kalen placed a hand on his shoulder. "Go," he said. "The door will open only for you." Eric stepped forward, holding the crystal high. At once, the walls responded, glowing brighter, the symbols burning with golden light. The ground shook, dust fell from the ceiling, and a deep sound echoed like a heartbeat. A door that had been sealed for centuries split apart, revealing a vast chamber beyond. Eric stepped inside, his eyes wide, and there, in the darkness, he saw it. A starship, ancient and magnificent, resting in silence. Its surface was scarred from old battles, its wings folded like those of a sleeping giant. But even in its slumber, the ship radiated power, a presence that made the air heavy. Eric's heart pounded as he realized what it was. This was one of the legendary Bloodline ships, the kind only humans could command. The crystal in his hand pulsed stronger, as if the ship itself could feel his presence. The symbols along its hull lit up, glowing with the same light as the fragment. Kalen stood back, awe in his scarred face. "It responds to you," he whispered. "Your blood calls it, as it did for your ancestors." Eric stepped closer, every nerve in his body alive. His hand brushed against the cold metal of the hull, and in that moment, the ship awakened. The ground shook, lights blazed across the chamber, and the silent giant roared to life. The engines hummed like a heartbeat, the walls vibrating with power. Eric felt his chest burn as his blood surged with energy. The ship's systems opened to him, not through words, but through connection. He saw flashes of battles, memories not his own, but carried through the ship itself. Generations of humans had flown this vessel, fought wars with it, lived and died in its heart, and now it belonged to him. The voice of the ship filled his mind, calm yet powerful. "Bloodline recognized," it said. Command sequence unlocked. Eric's knees weakened, his breath heavy. He had never commanded anything, never held power in his hands, and now an entire warship bowed to him. Kellen's eyes shone with grim pride. "You see now why they fear you," he said. "This is your legacy, Eric. Not shame, not weakness, but power to change the galaxy." But with power came a shadow. Eric could almost feel the weight of countless eyes turning toward him. Enemies stirring in the dark. The Council would not allow this to stand. Already, their spies would sense the awakening. Already fleets would prepare to hunt him down. He clenched his fists, his voice steady. "Then let them come," he said. "Let them see what they tried to erase. Let them see the fire of humanity again." The ship pulsed in agreement, its lights glowing brighter. And for the first time in centuries, a human starship rose from its slumber. The dust of ages fell away as engines roared, and the ground trembled with its power. Eric stood at its heart, no longer a boy mocked by the galaxy, but the heir of a legacy too great to silence. The last of his bloodline had found his purpose, and the galaxy would soon remember why humans were once feared. The chamber shook as the ancient ship rose from its cradle. Dust fell like rain, and the silence of centuries shattered under the roar of engines awakening. Eric stood at the heart of the vessel, his hand resting on the glowing console. The ship responded to him as if it had been waiting all along. The connection was not mechanical, not electronic, but a live blood to machine. Legacy to destiny. Kalen watched with wary eyes, his scarred face lit by the golden glow. "You have awakened," he said. His voice almost reverent. No alien could ever do this. Only the bloodline, only you. Eric felt the truth of those words deep in his bones. The ship's systems spoke to him without language, showing maps, records, and pathways across forgotten stars. It was overwhelming, yet natural, as if the knowledge had always been inside him, waiting to be unlocked for the first time. Eric no longer felt small, no longer felt weak. The laughter of the council echoed faintly in his memory, but it no longer cut him. They had mocked his bloodline, spat on his name, but now, standing inside the living heart of the ancient ship, he realized their fear was greater than their scorn. They had tried to erase his people because they had once ruled the skies. And now, with one ship awake, that fire had returned. The vessel lifted from the ruins, breaking through the cracked dome above. Outside, the barren valley trembled. As the giant rose into the night sky, Kalen stood beside Eric, steady despite the shaking floor. "They will sense this," he warned. "The council, the guilds, the empires, they will know something has stirred, and they will come for you." Eric's jaw tightened, but his eyes burned with defiance. "Let them come," he said, his voice firm. "I am done hiding." The ship soared higher, breaking through the clouds, revealing the endless canvas of stars. Eric gazed at them, his chest tight with awe. For his whole life, the galaxy had been a place of shame, of mockery. But now, with the ship beneath his command, the stars no longer felt distant, they felt like home. The console pulsed, revealing fragments of memory battles fought, victories won, humans standing side by side as they faced impossible odds. Eric saw flashes of his ancestors, their faces proud, their voices strong. He was not alone. Even if he was the last, their spirit lived within him, within the ship, within the bloodline, and he swore he would not let it fade again. But the rise of the last human did not go unnoticed. Far above, in hidden stations orbiting alien worlds, signals flared. Eyes turned toward the forgotten world. Voices whispered in fear. "The human bloodline stirs." They said, "The curse has awakened." Fleets began to mobilize, shadows of war gathering across the stars. Kalen placed a hand on Eric's shoulder, his voice steady but grim. "You must be ready, Eric. One ship alone cannot face the galaxy, but this ship is not alone. Others like it still sleep, hidden across forgotten worlds, if you can awaken them. You will not be one against many, you will be an army." Eric's breath caught at the thought. More ships, more power, more legacy waiting in the dark. The idea both thrilled and frightened him, but he knew it was his path. The galaxy had stolen everything from his people, but now it would give it back. The ship's systems projected a map into the air, glowing with points of light. Each mark was a resting place, each a hidden relic of his ancestors. Eric stared at the map, his heart pounding. The journey ahead was clear, but it was not just a journey of discovery. It was a journey of survival, of war. For every ship he awakened would bring more enemies down upon him. Outside the viewport, the stars stretched endless and bright. Eric felt a strange calm wash over him. The fear that had haunted him for years was gone. He was no longer the boy mocked by the council, no longer the stain of a broken bloodline. He was the heir of humanity's fire, the spark of a forgotten empire, and the galaxy would soon see that fire burn again. Kalen studied him carefully, his silver eyes sharp. "You are young, but your spirit is not," he said. "The ship has chosen you as it chose your ancestors. But remember, this is only the beginning. The council will not stop. The empires will not stop. They will unite against you, as they did before." Eric met his gaze, his voice calm but strong. "Then let them unite," he said. "I will not run, I will rise." The engines flared brighter, the ship cutting across the sky like a comet. Eric stood at the helm, his blood thrumming with power. And for the first time, he felt not just the burden of his legacy, but its strength. The rise of the last human had begun, and nothing in the galaxy could silence it. Asterisk. The ancient ship cut through the stars like a blazing spear. Its engines roared with life, echoing across the void. Inside, Eric stood at the helm, his hands steady on the glowing console. The map of hidden fleets still shone before him, each light a promise, each one a chance to bring his people's strength back into the galaxy. But time was not on his side. Already, the galaxy stirred in fear. Across the void, alien empires raised fleets, their war drums echoing across space. The council that once mocked him now whispered his name with unease. The human must be destroyed, they said. Before his bloodline awakens what should remain buried, armadas gathered, shadows of war stretching across the stars. And at the center of it all, the last human stood ready. Kalen watched Eric closely, his silver eyes filled with both pride and warning. You are rising, Eric, he said, but remember, one ship cannot win against 1,000. You must awaken more, or you will fall as your people once fell. Eric nodded, though his heart was heavy. The responsibility pressed on him like a weight too great for his shoulders. Yet the fire in his blood refused to dim. He was no longer a boy mocked in council chambers, no longer a shadow of weakness. He was the living flame of humanity, and he would not let it die. The ship guided him to another forgotten world, a planet cloaked in storms. Its surface was jagged, scarred by ancient battles. As Eric landed, lightning split the skies, illuminating ruins scattered across the land. Beneath the storms, another vessel slept, half buried in rock, its hull marked with the same symbols as his fragment. Eric pressed the crystal against the console, and once again, the ground trembled. The ship stirred, its lights flickering awake, and then another, hidden deep in a valley, responded too. The Bloodline called them, and they answered. One by one, the ships rose, their engines roaring like thunder. Kellen's face hardened as he watched. This is what they fear, he said. This is why they tried to erase your kind. No empire can stand against such power. Eric stared at the awakening fleet, awe burning in his eyes. It was no longer just about survival, it was about destiny. His ancestors had left these ships for him, not as relics, but as weapons, and now, they were his to command. But the enemy did not wait. As the second fleet rose, alien warships descended from orbit, their weapons blazing, the skies lit with fire as the council's armada arrived. Destroy him. Their voices thundered across channels. End the human bloodline before it spreads. The battle erupted in the storm-filled skies. Lasers cut through clouds, engines screamed, and fire rained down on the ruins. Eric gripped the helm, the bloodline ship pulsing with his heartbeat. The fleet around him responded to his will, their weapons locking, their wings spreading wide. He had never fought a battle like this, but the instincts of his ancestors surged through his blood. Every move felt carved into his bones. Every command flowed as if he had given it 1,000 times. The alien armada pressed forward, confident in their numbers, but they had never faced the fury of human ships awakened by their rightful heir. The clash shook the skies. Alien cruisers exploded under precise strikes, their flames falling into the valleys. The human fleet moved as one, each ship bound by blood, bound by Eric's command. Kalen fought at his side, guiding with experience. But even he looked in awe at how naturally Eric wielded the power. This is no accident, Kalen said between strikes. This is your destiny. Your people live through you, but destiny came at a cost. The council leader's flagship entered the field, larger than any vessel, bristling with weapons. It loomed like a shadow, its guns locking on Eric's ship. This ends now. The leader's voice thundered across the comms. Filled with venom, Eric's jaw clenched, his fire burning brighter than fear. No, he answered, his voice calm but unyielding. This begins now. The flagship unleashed its fury, beams tearing across the storm. Eric's ship shuddered under the assault, alarms blaring. but he held steady, guiding the fleet into formation. Together, the awakened ship struck, their combined fire slicing through the enemy's shields. The storm itself seemed to rage with them, lightning crashing in time with every strike, and with one final burst, the flagship cracked apart, its engines erupting into fire, the Council's pride, their greatest vessel. Fell burning into the void. The battle ended with silence, broken only by the hum of the human fleet. The alien armada scattered, broken and leaderless. The Council that once laughed at him now trembled in fear. Eric stood at the helm, sweat on his brow, but fire in his eyes. He had not only survived, he had won. Kalen placed a hand on his shoulder, his voice low. They will come again, stronger, more united. This war is far from over. Eric nodded, his gaze on the endless stars. I know, he said, but humanity will not hide again. We will not be erased. We will rise. And in that moment, Eric understood something greater. The legacy of his people was not only in ships or blood. It was in spirit, in courage, in the fire to stand when the galaxy wanted him to fall. He was the last of his bloodline, but not the last of his kind. For wherever hope burned, wherever defiance lived, humanity's spirit survived. The stars stretched wide before him, endless and waiting. The fleet followed, engines glowing like fireflies in the dark, and the galaxy, once filled with laughter at his name, now whispered it in fear and awe. Eric, the last human, the heir of a legacy beyond blood, the boy who carried the future in his veins, the boy who became the fire that would never be silenced. Asterisk.